Right, moving on to shading, you're going to have to use a combination of smooth shading and mark making. So, what I would like to see from you is that some lines are nice and thick like this and you've pressed down heavy with a pencil to get that dark tone. Other lines, you're going to use an extremely sharp pencil, you're going to press so lightly that you can barely even see it. Lines nice and spaced apart, and that way it gives the impression that it's a light colour fur. If you're really skillful, you're going to be able to use a gradient in a line. So going from thick to thin in a line, maybe some of the hairs cross over. It depends what the picture looks like. So there is times where we can be more skillful than the artist that we're looking at. So just remember that. I'll give you a closer look. Thick lines, pressure, heavy pressure. Thin skinny lines spaced apart with a light pressure, and where possible gradients in a line. So we're using lots of different line weights, and also to be successful on this task you have to consider direction. So you can use your pencil from time to time, just laying it down on top of the paper, and just figuring out what is the correct direction, because if we want this cat to have some form and we want it to look 3D, directions are a really important factor when we're drawing. So, the grid method drawing, you are working one square at a time, so I will zoom in. I'm going to do a little bit, and then I think you'll get the idea of what you're doing, and you'll be able to complete the whole drawing. So I'm working in this direction, just looking at that square there and trying to get the correct direction here. Just zoom out a tiny bit so you can see what square I'm working on. So there I've used my heavy pressure, I've got a nice dark tone and being able to capture some nice dark fur. Now I'm going to use skinny lines further spaced apart. And we'll just move along one box at a time. So just remember, where you want to be successful, you are looking at the picture for accuracy. Using at least 3 tones, dark, medium, light. And don't forget to rub out them construction lines where you've been gridding. When you start working on the right side of the face, it does change direction, the fur. And the whiskers, they want to be the very last thing that you do, so just ignore the whiskers for now and just focus on getting the fur right. The whiskers are going to go over the top of the fur because they sit, they're coming out of the fur. They want to be sitting on top. I'm not entirely happy with that area, but I think what I need to do is work along this row and then I can revisit that top row to see what I'm not happy with. So once you've done the top row, again, I'm already forgetting to rub out them construction lines. Make sure you rub them out. Doesn't matter about these grid lines, it just shows the examiner, look, I've used the grid method of drawing to create this recording. And just when you're applying these small marks here, what you want to think about, you know, for it to really look realistic, you don't want that perfect. You don't want all your mark making to be perfect and all the same. You can break the line up a little bit with some longer marks and some shorter marks, so it does look a little bit more realistic. Don't forget to put in the lighter tones. So you can barely see them on the picture, but they do need to be there. And it just suggests that it's a light coloured face. And maybe this cat that we're looking at has, maybe it's like a tiger cat and it's got like tan, white and dark brown areas on it. So remember, just lines spread further apart if we're trying to get that effect of a light tone. Lines closer together, more layered, more pressure for a dark tone. So I'm just going to show you an example on this bit. You know, if it is a complicated area, split it up into 4, you know, split it up into a smaller grid, and that way you can be much more precise with your drawing. So those students aiming for 7, 8, 9, you know, we can get, you know, I can see I went wrong there. I wouldn't have spotted that if I hadn't have gridded it up smaller. So there's another mistake that I've spotted. I did say to you that as you go along shading, you probably will spot little errors like that and you'll be able to make it more accurate. Nice sharp pencil if you're doing a nice detailed area. So if you haven't got a blender at home, what you can do is use a cotton bud. You can use a makeup brush, a paintbrush, and if you don't have any of them, you can use your finger. That blender, it creates a nice like smooth surface, but you do lose your detail and you do lose a lot of the different tones because it just sort of blends them into one tone. So you're going to have to use your rubber to get the light areas back, wherever it's light. And then you're going to use your pencil to get a few sharper bits of detail back in. And what would be great is if you had a shading pencil. Now's the time to use it on that area that's really, really dark. So the only shading pencil I've got at home is a 4B, which is not incredibly dark. You'd be better off with something like a 6B or higher, but if you don't have it, just use your pencil and do the best that you can to layer to get a dark tone. So you can spend as long as you want on this. Obviously, the longer you spend on it, the more detail it's going to have. When you're working on this bit here, you might want to give some of your marks a little bit of a curve to suggest that the form of the nose goes up over like this, and then it dips down like this, and it just helps it to have that extra bit of form to make it look realistic and 3D. So just another quick recap, when you're doing the dark areas, for example what I'm doing right now, you achieve that dark tone by layering up your lines, and your lines are nice and close together. You're putting down a heavy pressure to get that dark tone. We are observing the correct direction, because over here on this side of the face, your hairlines, the direction of them go to the right, whereas on this side of the face, the direction of the hairlines go to the left. In the middle of the face, it could be either or. You've just got to look at the picture and use your pencil if you need to try and get the correct direction. When you're working on areas such as the eyes and the nose, you're working very softly with light tones. You can use your finger to smudge, or if you have got a blender at home or a cotton bud, you can use those. It is really important that you do get the really light, faint lines, and we achieve that by spacing them further apart and using less lines. Really delicate with your pencil, almost like you're tickling the paper. You should barely be able to see them, but we do know that they're there. It's not just a plain piece of paper, we're given some sort of direction and adding to the form of the animal. So I'm going to stop now, but you can see that to achieve an accurate, realistic drawing, it is really important to use the different line weights. Heavy, light, layered, spread apart. And it's all those different combinations of marks, tones and direction that allows you to achieve an accurate drawing.